Yo, what's going on, Epic 7 players? Pat here, back to do my 2023 year in review for E7. This is actually the third year I've been doing this, and honestly, it kind of surprises me that I've been doing it this long. This is supposed to be a fun-filled look back on the best and worst things that happened to our little game this year. We'll cover the news stories, the updates that we had throughout the year, month by month, and then we'll wrap up at the end by talking about what the best heroes, artifacts, and exclusive equipments are. So, come with me, let's take a trip down memory lane and recount the year that was 2023. Enjoy now. January was actually a pretty strong start to the year for Epic 7. We received the Unrecorded History overhaul, which drastically reduced the amount of levels required in order to complete it. This would also become the absolute best place to farm gold and catalysts. Gold previously was pretty difficult to acquire in large quantities for most players. The overhaul also came with the addition of the side story selectors, as well as their accompanying story summon banners. No longer would you have to wait for Tamarin's banner to come back around if you were a new player. You could simply just choose her from the summon banner right from the get-go. February saw the nerf of two artifacts, Crimson Seed as well as Timeless Anchor. At the time, it was pretty puzzling to a lot of us players, but in the coming months, we would realize that it was definitely needed in order to give some counterplay to heroes like Apocalypse Robbie. Considering the current meta of the game, though, at the end of 2023, I'm starting to wonder if perhaps reverting these nerfs might actually be a pretty good idea. At the end of February, leading into March, we saw the release of two new Moonlight Theater episodes. First up, Runway Fighter, which tells the story of fan favorite top model Lulika, as well as her friend Requiem Ruana, who would be released later in the year. The later of the two would be Zero Defect City, a mystery centered around Last Rider Krau, as well as Operator Sigret. During this month, we also got an overhaul of the pet system, allowing it to become even easier for players to acquire that coveted 5-star pet. March also saw one of the bigger blunders of the year with the release of the Epic 7 board game by Farside Games. This thing was missing Kickstarter rewards, had pretty iffy quality in the pieces, and the game was downright unplayable out of the box. And these were just a few of the issues. Many heirs still haven't received their copies that they ordered, and it's only now, as I'm recording this at the end of December in 2023, that Smilegate is finally starting to offer refunds to those affected. I reviewed this game, so if you'd like to learn more about the pros and a lot of the cons, you can find out about the whole package linked right below the like button. Moving on to April, the game received yet another mechanical overhaul with the introduction of the Spirit Bloom system. That's right, for my lone-time players, no more dog walking. I think a lot of us were pretty skeptical at first about this system, but now that enough time has passed, I think we can all safely say that this is a better system, no? This same patch also saw the introduction of equipment score being added to the game, allowing players to finally all be on the same page when discussing the quality of the gear on their heroes. One of the biggest events of the year also occurred during April, the Orbis Caster Clash, in which Smilegate was trying to find the next great esports casting duo for Epic 7. Your boy was lucky enough to be one of the contestants, but unfortunately my nerves got the better of me, and I kinda self-destructed near the end. Despite that, I'm still eternally grateful for this opportunity, as I got to make some of the best friends that I could have asked for in this community. Shoutouts to Valky and Divine on your hard-earned win, and definitely shoutouts to Prof Boy, Fart Pancakes, and Lucid Azure. All 5 of you have been absolutely incredible friends to me over this past year, and I've grown so much, I feel like, as a person as a result of not only your friendship, but this competition. Coming off the back of that, we move into May, which is perhaps the slowest month of the entire year. The only real notable highlight was the return of the Tensura collab, aka that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Did you know that in the Japanese dub of Slime, they pronounce her name Demon Lord Milim, while in the English dub, they pronounce it Demon Lord Milim? Despite May being slow, June and July are perhaps the two most impactful months of the entire year for Epic 7, containing 3 absolutely massive news stories. But before that, let's talk about the game features that were added this month, starting with the release of the 2x speed update for auto battling. The insanely fun draft mode was also added during this month. Finally, players could live out their fantasy of having an account geared just like Elf Mage, and play the heroes that they never pulled from the Mystic and Galaxy summons. super fun game mode. It also saw the release of the player profile card system, allowing heirs to put their creativity on full display. Shoutouts to my boy Biako for my amazing profile card pictured here, as well as several of the others that have been playing on your screen in this section. Getting back to those massive news stories, we have to start, of course, with the release of the Chinese server for Epic 7. Absolutely one of the biggest deals of the entire year. This ushered in a huge group of players to the game that we all know and love. The successful launch also gave us new characters such as Niqual to celebrate the occasion later on in the fall. They also got their very own championship series, which just wrapped up just now in December. The second major story takes us into July, where longtime Epic 7 director Yuna Kim was apparently out at Smilegate. Our first new event under new management was A Midsummer Paradise. While Ocean Breeze, Lulika, and Lethe were well-received characters, the requirements to farm the event didn't exactly go over too well with the player base. Offering some of the best rewards the game has ever seen and locking them behind imprints of limited units was the closest that we've ever come to being a pay-to-win game. After player outrage, the system was eventually toned down throughout the event. Certainly not the first impression I think that this new management team wanted to make. The final major news story for July is one you probably haven't heard of, but it's sure to have long-lasting effects on Epic 7. Those of you who watched my 2022 year in review may remember the Korean GRAC. You know, the Game Rating and Administration Committee of South Korea. The people responsible for trying to censor Aria unless Smilegate changed the game's age rating to 18+. Well, at the same time as the Aria controversy in 2022, the GRAC hit another gacha game, Blue Archive, with a similar situation. They were forced to censor artwork or change the game's rating to 18+. Blue Archive players disagreed with this change and rallied against the GRAC. Over 5,500 players filed a petition, which triggered a South Korean law requiring an audit of the GRAC. What that audit found was that the GRAC was embezzling money and investing it into cryptocurrency, as well as falsifying documents. This triggered a wave of resignations from the institution, as well as the Korean government promising to completely overhaul the agency. So you might be asking, why is this important? Well, that means there's no GRAC at the moment. If you're wondering why we have units that look like Lethe, as well as the newly released Blooming Litka appearing as they do, remember to thank Blue Archive players. This is some serious karmic justice for Aria. Now, if only we could revert the changes to Sylvan Sage Vivian Smilegate, please and thank you. Going into Epic 7's 5th anniversary in August, we had a rerun of both the Guilty Gear Strive and ReZero collabs. It was also the start of Episode 5's story. Here's to hoping that it turns out to be a little bit better than the disastrous Episode 4. August also saw the start of the 2023 Epic 7 World Championship, and we had its exciting conclusion in September. Global did surprisingly well this year, with both Poopist and Winterwish finishing in the top 3. At the end of the day, though, it was once again the Japan server that took home the gold. Congratulations to Marguerite on their hard-earned victory. After the World Championship wrapped up, to further lean into the Epic 7 esports dream, we got the Epic 7 Match History website. This sleek site is filled with a wealth of information, very reminiscent of similar sites for other esports games, such as the ones made by Riot Games. Speaking of Riot, E7 also introduced their own teamfight tactics style gameplay mode this month with Brawl. This thing was absolutely one of the most fun and addictive parts of Epic 7, at least for me, this year. Moving into October, there really was only one major feature added to the game, and that was Rift. At first, players had some reservations with this new mode, but as time has gone on, I feel like Rift has kind of cemented itself as one of the most optimal ways to farm, at least if you're a veteran player. I know I personally haven't touched Hunt in the last 2 months since this thing released. Going 2 months without hunting still feels really weird and honestly unheard of to me even now. Sadly, October also marked the departure of longtime community managers Mashu and Luca from the Epic 7 team. These are two of my favorite people that I've gotten to work with in the Epic 7 space, and they are truly unsung heroes of this game. I wish them all the best in their future endeavors going forward. November wasn't exactly the best month for Epic 7. First, we had the introduction of the nearly universally panned user interface. What do you mean I can't view my gear and skill levels on the same tab? What if I have to share this with my guildmates or my friends? Please, Smilegate, revert these changes. This new UI is atrocious. This month also saw the announcement of the Awakened Potential system. This system would have functioned similarly to the summer event with a heavy emphasis on requiring imprints. While some proposed changes to older heroes like Krau and Ravi didn't really seem that bad, this system being implemented with every new hero, starting with Humir, would have been a bridge too far. All over the world, we saw heirs cry out against this system, eventually forcing the cancellation alongside an unprecedented video response from Smilegate themselves. This brings us to December. Wait, what the hell even happened this month besides 2 new limited heroes? A gardening simulator? Seriously? That's it? Okay, if there's a positive note to end the year on here, it is the strength and passion that the Epic 7 community has brought to this game this year. Other games definitely stood up and took notice of our community with how we handled things like A Midsummer Paradise, as well as the cancellation of the Awakened Potential system. I think those were changes worth fighting for, and I'm absolutely super proud of what the community accomplished. Switching gears now, let's talk about the heroes, artifacts, and exclusive equipments that came out in 2023. We're going to start with the heroes first, as I'm sure that's the one that most of you care about. This year we had 38 new heroes released. Surprisingly, only one more than the 37 units that were released in 2022. Let's break it down by the numbers. We had 8 new RGB 3 stars this year as opposed to 5 from last year, 3 new specialty changes as opposed to 7 from 2022, 1 RGB 4 star as opposed to none last year, 7 RGB 5 stars as opposed to 8 in 2022, 7 new limited heroes as opposed to 9 from 2022, 3 new Moonlight 4-star heroes as opposed to only 2 last year, and finally 9 Moonlight 5-star heroes that are new as opposed to only 6 new ones in 2022. You might feel like Smilegate dropped the ball on the specialty changes this year, but need I remind you that 4 of the specialty changes in 2022 were Auden herself. Even the 9 Moonlight 5 stars seems really high until you remember we had a near 5-month hiatus from Moonlight 5 stars due to the Awaken update in 2022. Despite the controversies that new management has had, I will give credit where credit is due. They've been doing an incredible job with the heroes in this game. The releases since the summer event alone of this year have been absolute bangers under their leadership. It's actually really difficult to pick the 5-star hero characters of the year. If I was to choose an RGB 5-star with just my heart, then clearly the winner would be Lethe, because she's hot as all hell, and she's super fun to play as well. That said, she is not the winner of my RGB 5-star for 2023, and she's not even the honorable mention. The honorable mention goes to Naqual. Lua has been one of the most oppressive heroes ever released, and Naqual is just that same character in a different package. And while her win rate isn't as dominant as Lua, she somehow feels even stronger in the right circumstances. She's also the hero that was released to commemorate the success of the Chinese server this year, so I felt that between that and her relative power level, she deserved a spot on this list. The winner for best RGB 5-star this year, though, in my opinion, that goes to Ocean Breeze Lulika. Her passive 1 Lulika special was probably the first honestly good answer to Conquer Ilias as an opener that we've had in a while. She had a fairly good play and win rate this year, by the way, at Epic 7's 2023 World Championship. In the months since her release, she's also remained fairly solid and stable in most forms of PvP. There's really not too much to dislike about the great Lulika. Now, on to the big one. Moonlight 5-star of the year. My honorable mention this year goes to Death Dealer Ray. He's a character most of you probably forgot even released this year. His most recent rework has catapulted him to the top of the PvP metagame, as he's pretty impressive. Toxic even, if you will. And while he might be one of the strongest right now, I don't know if he's going to remain this way in the future. And it's also really hard for me to really want to award the big prize to something so divisive. So we'll just leave him at honorable mention. So now you may be asking, who is the best Moonlight 5-star hero of 2023? No one. As in, there's not one answer, because there's not one, not two, but three really broken, lovely ladies that came out this year. I'm sure you could guess by now, but my Moonlight 5-star hero of the year is a three-way tie between Lone Crescent Bellona, Navy Captain Landy, and Abyssal Euphine. Lone Crescent Bellona has been an amazing Guild War and Arena unit since her release, and players like Winterwish showed just how far this character can carry you at the World Championship. With her most recent round of changes, she's in an even more dominant position and one of the strongest World Arena characters in the game right now. Navy Captain Landy, like Ray, was a pretty divisive character. But it's hard to deny that the poster child of the World Championship shouldn't land somewhere on this list. High pick rate, high ban rate, great win rate at Worlds this year, and she caused a complete shift in how we play this game at the highest level. Everything felt like it revolved around Landy for about 2 months or so this year until we got a bunch of new tools introduced into the pool to deal with her. And even then, it still feels like her S3, Mobilize the Warship, is one of the most oppressive skills in the entire game. Not to be outdone by the other two, Abyssal Euphine is an incredibly strong Moonlight 5-star hero, thanks in no small part to her passive Inner Abyss. This has to be one of the most loaded passives in the game's history. This has led to her seeing a boatload of play in not only offensive but defensive PvP teams, as well as being crammed into almost every single playstyle and composition imaginable in World Arena. Once her trauma hits, it probably spells doom for your opponent. I've done guides for all three of these ladies, so if you want to learn how to play them, feel free to check those out. Links again below the like button. Moving on to artifacts, we actually only had 14 new artifacts this year, compared to 25 from last year. But let's be honest, most of the artifacts from last year weren't exactly pretty good. The ones we had this year, though, were pretty spectacular. We had artifacts like Benimaru's Tachi, Prayer of Solitude, and of course Soul Consolation. But let's be real here. There really was only ever going to be one choice that was going to win this award, and that's Abigail's artifact, Golden Rose. This thing is one of the reasons why my girl Lionheart Cermbia was one of the most dominant damage dealers at Worlds this year. It was also the most coveted artifact for most selectors and custom banners that we've had over the last several months. Golden Rose is basically the new and improved Sigurd Scythe for damage dealers that are increasingly moving away from the attack stat and towards defense scaling damage multipliers. The exclusive equipments this year paint a similar story to the artifacts, wherein we had drastically less of them compared to last year. We had 12 new ones this year as opposed to 18 from last year. Unlike the artifacts though, I don't really feel like any of the exclusive equipments this year truly stand out so much as the characters that got them also had big changes that catapulted their play. Think of characters like Sharoon and Shuna. Great changes to the characters that allowed them to see play, they just happen to have exclusive equipments as well. I think the one, though, that has the most potential for the longest lasting impact on the game, at least for PvE, is Ken's exclusive equipment because it gives a guaranteed dual attack to a character on his team. So I think I'm probably going to go with that one as the best exclusive equipment of 2023. But overall, these are a solid bunch, but nothing, again, really stands out for me. Before we wrap up this video, I just want to take some time to reflect on this past year, as well as the past few years as a content creator. In 2020, I felt like I had lost everything in my life. Friends, work, content creation, my passion, my dreams. I often worry that maybe I'm getting too old, that maybe my dreams won't actually come true. I started down this path as an Epic 7 content creator because of people who love me and pushed me to keep believing and to keep dreaming. This year, I faced my fears and tried to shoutcast for the first time in 3 years. This year, I started my own podcast for the first time since COVID. This year, I made more friends than I lost for once. This year, I doubled my audience. Thank you, truly, to everyone who has watched my content. Thank you to everyone who has given me hope to keep my dreams alive for just another year longer. Thanks for watching. The best is yet to come, and I'll see you in 2024.